I don't know if I'm going to be able to pretend to wear glasses for the whole video because these are not my real glasses. Hello. Welcome to my February financial reset. And I just want to say this may just be the hottest, juiciest financial reset I've ever done. I am so excited. As always, I'm going to be taking you through a recap of my January, everything I spent, saved, made, all that good stuff. And then we will be resetting my budget for February and taking you through my goals for the month ahead. Before we get into it, maybe I should introduce myself. My name is Ruth. I'm a millennial living in Calgary, Alberta, and I share my personal finance journey online for others to mock or admire, whatever you want to do. Anyways, fun fact about me is that I live right beside a train track in downtown Calgary, and a train goes by probably 5 times an hour. So over the course of filming this video, I will take multiple train breaks, but sometimes I feel like powering through. So if you hear a train in the background, that is why. And speaking of, there is one coming right now. Yeah. Let's just get right into it. Starting off with my January recap. As I kind of alluded to in the introduction, January was kind of insane. It was one of those months where I felt like, oh my God, is all my hard work finally paying off? And honestly, I'm so freaking excited to share with you how January went. But I just want to give a little bit of a disclaimer. I'm not making this video to brag in any way, shape, or form. In fact, I feel like I often hesitate before posting content online because I am worried that I promote this like toxic girl boss hustle culture. In fact, I feel like I'm honestly kind of embarrassed about how hard I work to just maintain like a very average middle class lifestyle. I work 2 jobs. I work 32 hours a week as a dietitian at a clinic, and that is in person. And then I work another 10 to 12 billable hours doing virtual private practice counseling and meal plans. However, for every 1 billable hour I work, I would say I work at least 2 to 3 non-billable hours. So this is things like charting. Meal plans takes me easily 2 to 3 times as long to churn out a meal plan than I can bill for. When I think about my work-life balance, I feel like I'm working easily 60 to 70 hours a week, and there's a huge chunk of that that is not compensated. I also tend to take on projects that I work on outside of work. Like I'm going to spend most of my day off tomorrow working on this sport nutrition presentation because I feel like if I worked on it during work hours, it wouldn't be to the standard that I want it to be. Anyway, all this to say, a lot of months, I feel like I am drowning, just trying to swim upstream, trying to get a little bit ahead in this motherfucking rat race. And January felt like one of those breakthrough months where actually the work and effort I put in feels like it's starting to pay off. I am anxious to share that online, to share that win with you guys, but I'm also trying to give myself the grace to be proud of myself and the effort I put in and the quality of work I produced, and not beat myself up too much or think too critically about me sharing this success online being a white woman of immense privilege. Okay, that was a bit of a tangent. Let's get into this. I'm going to pull up my laptop because I have my notes. Okay, starting off with income in January. From my salary job, so the clinic job, I work 32 hours a week. I made $4,372.55 net take-home pay. I do get $90 deducted off of each paycheck, and that goes into an RRSP that my company matches. So they also put in $90. That is relatively new. I enrolled in that in November or December. But all that to say, that is my take-home pay. Then this month, I made $1,954.80 from my virtual private practice counseling, which actually blew my mind. I knew that I'd worked a lot, but when I went through my invoice at the end of the month, my mind was blown. I actually couldn't believe that this was by far my highest earning month. And then my mom e-transferred me $200 as a belated Christmas gift. Thank you, Mom. So that brought my total earnings for December to $6,527.37. I know it's not much, maybe compared to other 32-year-olds, but I am very proud of that. I spent almost 10 years in post-secondary education, so it feels good that it's kind of sort of starting to pay off. I do also want to say this is not related to my finances, but it was also my most consistent month for running. The first week of January, I ran 53, then I ran 56, then I ran 60, and this past week, I ran 63 kilometers. The legs are feeling good. I'm feeling like I'm bringing varsity back. I'm going to try for 70 next week. I'm feeling the itch to compete again, and this is something I wasn't sure that I would ever do after school. All this to say, I am thrilled that my busiest month did not impact my running. In past, when I've gotten really busy and overwhelmed, running's the first thing to go, and then I get even more stressed and negative and anxious because running is such a stress reliever and source of endorphins for me. So I'm happy that I was able to maintain a really high workload and also stay consistent with running. So yeah. Anyway, moving on to expenses. Where did all my money go this month? For my fixed expenses, that includes things like rent, my cell phone bill, my student loan payment, internet, electricity, and our insurance. That came to a total of $2,047.63. And then for my variable expenses, this would be things like groceries, personal care, dining out, any wedding expenses that I didn't draw from our wedding savings. That totaled $1,636.01. And this category included my fun fund. For those of you who didn't watch my January reset, I set a New Year's resolution to only buy 12 things in 2026 or one thing a month. These are not basic needs. These are wants. So clothing, jewelry, any high-end personal care that goes beyond like drugstore purchases. I gave myself $150 to spend in January on one item, and I purchased these Lululemon pants. I honestly bought them because of work, because the clinic that I work at also has a sister company that focuses on sport performance, and opportunities to be a sport dietitian keep coming up. I really wanted a pair of pants that looked kind of professional but still athletic. I feel like whenever I go to these things, I'm wearing my dress pants and I look really out of place. So I did purchase them for work, but I have absolutely no regrets. I love this style of like athleisure, kind of professional jogger almost. So very happy with this purchase. I definitely feel like it filled a gap in my wardrobe because I only really have my running shorts or my tights, and neither of those would have really worked in this professional setting. They were $148 before tax, and in Alberta, we only have 5% sales tax, so they were $155 after tax. So they were slightly over budget, but I'm honestly not going to penalize myself for that. They're kind of an investment in the direction I want to go in my career, so feeling good about that purchase. And I just want to say too, this only buying one thing a month, I feel like is genuinely life-changing. I'm a Libra, so I'm an inherently very indecisive person, which I feel like psychologically worked to my advantage because the moment I gave myself only one thing to purchase, I automatically avoided making any purchases because I was so concerned about making the right choice or making a decision. And I ended up waiting until the 25th of January before deciding what I was going to buy for the month. Say what you want about that resolution, but I feel like the proof is in the pudding because my total expenses for January were $3,683.64. And for those of you who are math whizzes, you would know that resulted in some pretty freaking hefty savings. So let's talk about it. My total savings for January were $2,550. I genuinely can't believe it because I feel like even the concept of saving $1,000 a month to me feels like something that I have to kill myself to do. And the fact that I completely blew that out of the water is honestly outrageous. It's not going to be like this every single month, but I just have to scream, we motherfucking did it. I kind of feel stupid for how excited I am. Like, I know so many people with trust funds who like, they could piss away $2,000 in a weekend. But for me, this is really huge. Honestly, I'm I'm genuinely proud. Of that $2,550, I put $1,700 into my emergency fund, and that brings the total of my emergency fund to $6,300. And then I put $850 into our wedding savings. My goal for wedding savings was $500 a month, so I contributed an extra $350. However, I didn't put more in wedding savings only because I also spent about $400 on wedding invitations this month, and I didn't withdraw that from our wedding savings, so I kind of considered that almost like contributing to wedding savings. That leaves $293.71 for my fund, which I will roll over into February, and that is what I will budget towards my one item. I'll just give you a quick overview for how my accounts are looking overall. I honestly can't tell you the total balance of our wedding savings because I just e-transfer Joel every month and he puts it into our joint wedding savings. It makes sense to do it that way. He is making a lot of the big purchases for our wedding, like booking accommodations. So I'm just happy with him to deal with that, and I contribute monthly as I can. In my TSFA, I have $213.16, and that is invested solely in Aritzia stock. I don't know why I did that. It kind of feels like a bit of a gamble. I don't know. I wasn't thinking too deeply about that, but once I've topped up my emergency fund, I'll probably put some of it in a TSFA and continue contributing there for my savings. My RRSP is at $538.81, but like I mentioned, that's an account I recently opened up in November when I found out that my employer had a matching program, so I've only been contributing for a couple months now. Anyway, that about sums up my January. I've been listening to Turn My Swag On by Soulja Boy every morning on my run, and I feel like that may have had a subtle but indirect impact on my finances. It's definitely had a positive effect on my mental health. So I guess that would be my tip. If you are currently struggling, get a better playlist. Okay, February. For my February budget, we're going to hop on over into my YNAB and we're going to reset my budget there. I'm going to be totally honest with you guys. I haven't fully figured out YNAB. I like it. I like the overview that it gives, but I feel like I haven't really figured out the funding part of things and like the ready to assign. I feel like the cash flow doesn't really match up with what I consider my cash flow to be, if that makes sense. I haven't fully updated mine for January, but I'm still going to take you through my budget breakdown for February and endeavor to do better in March. For my credit cards, I never really worry about it because I put every single one of my purchases on a credit card that I possibly can to get those points, and then I pay my credit card off in full every single paycheck. I do that without fail. And I feel like that makes it somewhat confusing on YNAB because they want you to categorize every single transaction. So a transaction where I am transferring money from my checking onto one of my credit cards to pay off the balance, it wants me to categorize that, but then I also have to categorize all the transactions on my credit card. My little pea brain hasn't quite computed how to do this yet. But anyway, all this to say, I'm a newbie when it comes to YNAB, and we can learn together. Or I'm hoping by putting it out there, you can help me learn. Let's look at my monthly bills. So I've got my student loan at $697.55. That is not going anywhere anytime soon. What I typically do every single month is on my first paycheck that happens on the 15th, I will fund the student loan halfway. And then on my second paycheck that comes on the last day of every month, I will fund the remaining portion of it. Cell phone bill, because it's not a very big charge, I usually fund that on the first paycheck because it's due on the 15th or the 16th, I believe. Please just ignore this. I have fully paid my cell phone bill for January, but I haven't updated my January YNAB. For rent, our total rent, and this includes $200 for parking downtown, is $2,080. I pay half. We split that 50-50, so my half is $1,040. However, Joel transfers me money throughout the month to put towards his half of the rent. So for rent, I put our full rent amount and then I just update it. Again, when my first paycheck comes in, I will allocate $520 to rent. And then on my second paycheck, I will allocate the remaining balance. And then anytime Joel e-transfers me, I will just put that towards rent. For electricity, it's consistently stayed under $50. I don't really fund that throughout the month, but I think it comes out on the second half. Same thing with internet and our insurance. These bills are all due in the second half of the month. Subscriptions are due throughout, and I feel like I am constantly canceling and resubscribing to things, and it's honestly a category that kind of blows my mind how much money I spend each month on subscriptions. But here's the thing. I feel like a lot of them are YouTube related, and one day far in the future when I monetize this channel, I would like to claim some of my subscriptions as business expenses. I haven't really done that yet, except for with my Zoom, which is a business expense for like my legit job. But I feel like, again, subscriptions is not such a significant amount of my income that I can just fund that as the expenses come up. So those are my monthly bills. I am not going to go through and fund them right now, only because I do it based on receiving my paychecks on the 15th and the 30th or the 31st of every month. For other expenses, we have wedding expenses. If it's a larger expense for the wedding, so for example, paying a deposit on my wedding dress, that I would typically remove from our wedding savings and it would just cancel out. But for things like the invitations, or we bought a fun like wax seal for the invites, just like little stuff like that, little expenses that crop up related to the wedding, I am just purchasing them out of pocket. But I haven't set a target for it because I feel like I can just manage it as the expenses come up. For alcohol, we may host people in February. I think we would like to, but it's not a set amount that I want to allocate every single month. Same thing for household. Like our apartment's pretty set. We moved in September. The only piece of furniture we're kind of missing is a shoe rack, like a nice one to go in our entryway. But I think Joel and I are both comfortable holding off on that indefinitely if it means we can just put that money into our wedding savings. Groceries is and always will be out of hand. I think last month we spent $771, although it was a month where we had 5 grocery bills. So we bought groceries on the last day of the month. Those are technically going to be eaten in February. So it's a little bit higher. We've been better. We've been consistently spending about $250 to $270 every week on groceries, which is a big improvement. That's a category I end up funding again on my first paycheck and on my last paycheck because Joel put the groceries on his card and then he'll send me just an expense report for the first half of the month and I will transfer him the balance owing. It was very chaotic when he did not do that. But we have learned with trial and error, it's just easier if we align it with the first half of the month and the second half of the month. Transportation, we don't really have any expenses related to that. We have an electric vehicle. We still have free charging for the first 2 years. Speaking of electric vehicles, that does not sound like an electric vehicle outside. Personal care, I've been really cutting back on. I'm still just doing a polish change. I have some cosmetic items I need to purchase this month, like my concealer is running really low. However, I have a shopper's gift card. I think I'm just going to keep personal care at $50 because I foresee being able to cover any of my little expenses that crop up with either points or the gift card. Clothing, I'm setting at $0 indefinitely because any clothing purchases I make will come out of the fun fund. So clothing, I'm considering a want because I have all the basic clothing I need to survive. The one maybe asterisk here would be running shoes. I am due to get new running shoes. My shoes I've had since September, I put a good amount of mileage on them, and I'm debating whether or not I count running shoes as my one purchase in February or if I consider that a need because I technically need them to work out, and working out is a part of living a healthy, balanced, fulfilling life. So I'm having this internal struggle whether or not to classify running shoes as a want that I need to withdraw from my fun fund, or if they are a need and my fun fund can be allocated to something else. I have to look into my health benefits because I may have benefits coverage for things like running shoes. I think I get $300 allocated to health spending If I can put that towards running shoes, I will, and therefore it will not come out of the fun fund. Dining out, this is usually around $150, $200 a month. I'm going to keep it at $150. It's usually slightly over, but it's never enough to break the budget. However, I feel like I spend a little bit more when I'm working more, and that just makes sense. Like, it's a way that I can spend some quality time with Joel and still feel a little bit productive. Anyway, that's how I justify spending that much on dining out. Hobbies, again, anything related to hobbies, running aside, I'm going to consider a want and not a need, which is why I've allocated $0 to hobbies. Sorry knitting, sorry beading, sorry sewing. I already have so much supplies for those. If I get the urge to craft, if I get the time to craft in 2026, I'm just going to have to do it with stuff I already own. And I think that's totally fair and reasonable. My fun fund, I kind of already touched on, but I'm rolling over more money this month. Instead of $150, I'm giving myself around $300 to spend on one item. But if I don't spend that full amount, then that just gets added on to the rollover for March. I don't really have any clear plans on what to spend that on. I think I was contemplating some nice leather booties. I think they might look cute for a Valentine's Day look, but as of right now, I'm very, very undecided. Okay, moving on to my savings goals. Taxes and professional dues, honestly, I should probably set money aside for taxes because I do have some self-employment income, but in my defense, my self-employment income never really exceeds $30,000, so I'm not a primary target for the CRA. That being said, I should still have some money allocated for taxes just in case I have to pay money. Professional dues, I'm very lucky. Both the companies I work for cover my professional dues, and those are like hundreds of dollars. So it's nice that I don't have to worry about saving up for those. I'm registered in 2 different provinces, in Alberta as well as in BC, and both of those renew the 31st of March. So it would have been a hefty price tag had I not had coverage from my employers. So we love travel, not really funding, holidays and gifts, not really funding, nothing burgeoning on the horizon except for Valentine's Day. Wedding savings, I'm still setting a goal to save $500 a month towards the wedding. And then if I make more income than expected, I try to contribute more to the wedding savings, especially since we haven't totally considered our honeymoon expenses. So it's always good to have a little bit more saved than you think you're going to need. Retirement and investments, this is what automatically gets taken off my paycheck and matched by my company, so I don't have to actively think about saving that money. I think I skipped over my emergency fund, but I'm still setting the goal to save $500 a month towards my emergency fund, and then when I hit 10K, I am going to allocate those savings elsewhere. I anticipated hitting 10K for my emergency fund in October, but the way things are going, we may just hit it in July, and that will be excellent news for my TSFA or my student loan. I would like to pay more towards both of those. I'm not going to update you on my net worth. I think I'm just going to do that quarterly, do a little quarterly check-in. How's my net worth looking? When we looked at it in January, it was not looking too hot. It was looking pretty freaking negative, and it's not going to change dramatically from month to month, but hopefully in a quarter, it'll be a little bit encouraging to see that change by a factor of a couple $1,000s. Okay, let's talk about my February financial goals. Genuinely, my goal is just to keep doing what I'm doing for as long as possible because it is clearly working very, very well. And I honestly feel like I've turned a corner with my mindset around work. I'm not entirely sure what prompted this change in January, but I feel like I've just taken full ownership over my situation and my work-life balance. For example, I am choosing to spend time tomorrow on my day off on my sport nutrition program, and I'm genuinely excited to do that, whereas previously I would have put this weird pressure on myself to work on it outside of work hours and then feel resentful towards myself, my employer. I choose to spend extra time putting together meal plans. I choose to work on presentations outside of work because I care more about the standard that these are done to than I do about directly trading my time for money. Like if it takes me more time to do it, I feel like I would prefer that than doing a subpar job in the time allocated. That's definitely a mindset that's like somewhat financially limiting, but I feel like in January, I've just come to terms with it. I've just felt peace with it. Whereas before, I would feel this sense of resentment that like somehow I wasn't good enough or like the expectations were unrealistic. And it's not that they are, it's just that I am choosing to put more time and energy into them. The point I'm trying to make is that I feel like I am accepting accountability for the choices I'm making and that I am at peace with them. I'm at peace with the way that I work. I am at peace with where I'm putting my energy every single day because I genuinely feel like it aligns with my future goals. I just really want to keep this positive outlook and this sense of autonomy over my choices and this enjoyment that I'm feeling for work right now. I used to really resent like sitting down on a Sunday and working on a meal plan. And I feel like for the first time in January, I would sit down to do these meal plans and I would be excited. I would picture my interaction with this person in my head and feel excited by the prospect of helping them. Whereas before, I would just get really stressed because I knew that it was going to take me way too freaking long to crank out this meal plan and I was going to overthink every single decision. I think I'm just having more confidence in my decision making as a practitioner and also like leaning into the aspect of my career that really is centered on helping people, and that is keeping me feeling so motivated. There's a train going by and realistically, most of you have stopped watching. If you're still here, first of all, thank you so much. That means a lot to me. Secondly, I apologize that the audio is not pristine, but I really just want to get through my conclusion, my February goals. I think if there's one thing I could shift in February, it's just advocating for myself more at work and for what I want. Like, yes, I'm doing a lot outside of work and I know the direction I want to go in, and it'll take some advocacy for me to expand my role so that there's less work that I have to do or that I feel like I have to do outside of work because it will be more included in my job description, if that makes sense. The whole sport nutrition thing, it's not exactly a core part of my current job description, but it's a direction I really want to go and grow in. I was an athlete myself. I feel like that's my origin story as a dietitian. So I really want to have meetings with the people that I need to have that be expanded as part of my role so that I can allocate specific hours during the week to growing that side of the practice. Last but not least, this is going to sound incredibly cheesy and it's not directly related to my finances, but it kind of is. I just want to show more appreciation for Joel, my fiance. I see so much depressing content online of women complaining about their shitty husbands, and I just feel like that could never be me. I could never have months like this if it weren't for Joel. He does so much for me around the house, from grocery shopping and meal prep to always making sure I'm coming home to a hot meal after work. To give you just one specific example, I get home from my clinic job around 5:30 and I usually have my first virtual counseling patient at 6 p.m. And sometimes if I have multiple patients, I will work till 8:15 p.m. Every single night I come home, Joel has a hot dinner waiting for me so that I can just scarf it down and prep for my patient at 6 p.m. So I genuinely mean it when I say he is a major reason I can even celebrate months like this. Love you, babe. And I know he's watching this because he watches every single one of my videos. And that about wraps up my February financial reset. How are you guys feeling? 1 month down, 11 months more to go in 2026. Let me know in the comments below, what were some of your financial resolutions and do you feel like you met them? And as always, have a beautiful, blessed week, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.